So, hello and welcome back. It's been a while, and I thought I would explain why. So, rewind to 2023, and I released this black PCB here, the Ultimate-NAG52 version 1.3 PCB. This PCB is still in use today, but I figured at around mid-2024 that it is due for a redesign, maybe just a slight redesign at the time. And as you can see I've recently released the Xeno board, which is just an improvement to the existing circuitry, but this is coming in later. So, at around April time of 2024, I made this test PCB, which has a few extra features, such as now using linear voltage regulators. Well, that's not an extra feature, but what is an extra feature is using this guy here for solenoid voltage shutoff, so a high side switch, which will shut all power off to all the solenoids should something go wrong, and also this central chip here with diagnostics for the solenoids, but the ESP32 is still controlling each one manually. This one is simply just doing the diagnostics for open or short circuit. So I put this board together and I wrote some software for it, and it didn't quite work exactly how I wanted to, and then I kind of went back to developing with the old 1.3 PCBs with the software because I was getting more and more users using the board, etc, etc. So fast forward to December of 2024, and I was having some discussion with some people in the embedded space, and the consensus was that ESP32 is really good, but it has some limitations, primarily the lack of pins, because only 32 pins on a TCU is pretty pathetic, but it's not automotive qualified. And also, who knows what the software is in ESP IDF, because I can write my software for the TCU's codebase to meet various automotive compliances, but the underlying IDF framework does not meet that qualification. So therefore, I don't know exactly if there might be bugs further down the stack that I'm using, and therefore you might have potential issues. So then I came up with this crazy idea. How about I make a board which has both an Atmel controller and an ESP32, and you can choose which configuration you want. Sounded like a great idea at the time, but in actual fact that was going to be an absolute nightmare to implement, having two designs, because now I had to work on two code bases for a completely different board design. As you can tell, there's also a third chip on there, and I'll get to that in a bit. So I started playing around with Rust on the Atmel controller, because yes, the new firmware I want to write in Rust because it's so much more lightweight and so much easier thanks to the Atmel SAMD library, which I'm also contributing to right now. But yeah, this design, it was a good proof of concept, and I did like it, and some initial backing and forthing and developing, and I managed to get some proof of concept to show that it can control the solenoids, that you can read all the sensors on the board. I was really happy with that. So then that leads me on to the final design, which I'm hoping will be the final design for this board, and I'm proud to announce Ultimate-NAG52 2.0. So this guy ups the processor and obviously ditches the ESP32 completely now. Now I'm using an Atmel SAM E54, which is a monster of a CPU, and I've even put on the end of it now a 16 megabyte flash chip and a 120 kilobyte EEPROM chip. This flash chip, I've been shown you can use it for external storage emulation, you can do so much cool stuff with it, and so I'm thinking of maybe utilizing that later on, and the EEPROM will store things like adaptations and settings and stuff, which means that the internal flash of the CPU is entirely free for the program application. As you can also see on here, there's actually a debug header. That allows me to debug the software, whereas on the ESP32 variant I couldn't because all the debug pins were already used up for other functions. So luckily on this board I can now finally actually use a debugger when I'm developing the software to track for bugs and other problems which might arise with the board. Also, let's get on to what this guy is here. This is Infineon's TLE8242, linear solenoid driver IC, and this guy controls all the solenoids, does all the monitoring, and I can actually send current requests to it, and I can just say, set the modulating pressure solenoid to 800 milliamps, and it deals with it. I no longer have to write the software on the CPU to control the current of the MOSFETs, and this chip is actually very accurate. Like, I was doing some tests, and it is extremely accurate and extremely quick to react. I love using this, and I think this is going to make such a difference, since even the original EGS52, which so many of you guys have in your cars, the processor is controlling the current by essentially just having a feedback from these two resistors through this amplifier to here, and it's adjusting in real time, saying like, okay, I need to add more or reduce the PWM to get more or less current sent to the solenoid. but it can only do that every 4 to 6 milliseconds since it is a very slow CPU. Well, and also because it's running the entire operating system to control the gearbox. So I figured it would be actually an interesting idea to offload that to the external chip, and in that way the main processor is there to do whatever else I want. Also, as you can see here, I've got, again, the same high side switch for the solenoid power supplies, so that also will shut off power if anything is wrong. The torque converter Zener board on the 1.3 board is now integrated here on the PCB, which is really good. And then also, I've included 2 power supplies for 5 volts on the board, whereas before there was only 1. This way the PCB itself has one 5 volt supply, and this one, if this one dies, the whole board turns off. So that doesn't need any failsafe, but what does need a failsafe is the one which goes to the external sensors outside the TCU, such as the one inside the gearbox itself, the temperature sensor. This one does have a shut-off, so if it detects a overload or something, I can, from the processor, shut off 5 volt supply to the outside world. So that, I think, is really, really helpful in terms of diagnostics. Also, there's also now a K-line chip on here, so I might eventually be able to program diagnostics over K-line for you lot with the older cars who can't do diagnostics over CAN. Also, this board ups the layer count from 2 layers, which was on the 1.3 board, to 6. So it's a very, very complicated PCB now internally, and I'm very proud of it. And also, I'm happy to say I'm using JLC PCB again. I'm not sponsored by them, but seriously, the price for the 6-layer PCBs they have is crazy good. So that's why I went ahead with 6 layers. And also, as standard is the ENIG finish. So very nice finish on there. And I've got my little layer markings there. Also, as you can see, I've got some very nice pictures on here. I've put a better quality picture of a TCU on my Instagram, so if you want to go have a look at my Instagram, go ahead. The link is in the description as always. But that'll be it for this video. So I think I'll just show you this board and let you guys admire it. So that's it for this video. I just want to make a couple more announcements. First of all, when this will be ready, I don't know. Please don't ask me, because it's going to be a very slow process to write the software for this and also maintain the 1.3 boards. Speaking of which, I'm still going to use those for many, many months. And also, even when I eventually switch over to this board in my personal vehicle, don't think the 1.3 board is going away. I plan to still use that as maybe a hobbyist grade, and this is going to be maybe like a pro version. It's going to be more expensive anyway, just because the cost of the board is a lot more expensive than the 1.3 one. So yeah, there's that covered. Also, if you've noticed so far on the store, I have shut down the store essentially for the Ultimate-NAG52 project. That is purely because I have been moving to my own place now, and as a result of that I was just too busy. So I'm hoping maybe by mid-March I can open the store up again, because I would have settled down by then. So that'll be all good. And lastly, with hopefully me now settling into my own place, I might be able to do some more live streaming, especially if you guys want to see me develop the software on this board. Since it's going to be written in Rust, which will be using RTIC, or Arctic, however you want to say that, as the main operating system. Well, it's not really an operating system, it's actually just an async framework. But yeah, if you want to see me develop with that, so you know what embedded development like is in Rust, then go ahead and follow, and I'm sure I'll do a couple live streams if you guys all want me to, where I cover developing this. And that'll be about it for this video. So if you like it, go ahead and like it. If you disliked it, well, then dislike it. And I look forward to seeing you sometime soon, where maybe I'll have another update, or maybe I'll just show you my new office space and what cool things I have here now. So see you again sometime soon. Bye.